Okay, today we are talking more about savings accounts, and we're really more talking about earning interest, paying interest, and using a simple interest formula. One of the things you might have noticed here on the beginning, what do you do for the start of the class here? It said today's assignment is a 4.2 exit ticket problems in your notes. So we're going to not do all of the problems in your notes. We're going to do most of the problems in your notes, and you're going to have a couple of problems, 4 or 5 problems that you're going to do at home, and we're going to call that your exit ticket. That's just proven that you tried. Hopefully you know how to do the questions we covered in the notes. Does that make sense? Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to talk about vocabulary. We're going to learn how to compute simple interest. Yes. Yes. Take your earbuds out too, okay? All right. A savings account is an account at a bank or a financial institution, credit union, and it almost always earns interest. The bank pays interest for the use of money deposited into a savings account. What you doing, Mason? You're what? Okay, where's your 4.2 notes? Okay, where are your 4.1 notes that you're submitting? Well, let's do that later. You can do that at the end of class. So just drop your phone back in your backpack. You can do that at the end of class. All right. Principal. Principal is the beginning balance. If you're earning money, earning interest rather, on a balance in your account, then the principal will be the balance in your account. It could also be if you're borrowing money, it's the amount you borrow. So the balance or amount of money in the account or borrowed. Interest rate. So you can earn interest. So if you have a savings account at the bank, you got $10,000 in there, and your bank will pay you interest on the amount of money you have at the end of each statement, right? And so interest can be the amount of money you earn based on someone else borrowing or using your money, and then you can pay interest. You pay interest if you borrow money from someone else. The percent rate that is paid by a bank or earned on some income account. There's also the amount you pay if you borrow. It doesn't talk about that there. We're going to talk more about loans and stuff later. So right now we're talking about earning interest more than we're talking about paying interest. Annual percentage rate is the interest rate that's paid or charged per year. Remember, annual means once a year. Annually, we learned about how often people get paid. If you get paid annually, it's once a year. You want to move up there? Topic? I'll try to make it bigger too. Simple interest. That's what we're going to talk about today. It's not super realistic. Your parents might charge you simple interest if you borrow money from them. You might charge your brother or sister simple interest if they borrow money from you. But we are going to talk about how to calculate simple interest today. Interest calculated on the principal in an account using I equals P RT. And we're going to talk more about that, so it's okay if you don't understand that yet. You really should probably have covered that already, depending on where you went to school, in middle school or whatever, but we are going to talk about what the P, the R, and the T stand for. Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Looks like a bunch of people still writing. I'll pause my yapping. So remember earlier in the year we talked about Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. You usually see it as FDIC. How many of you have a bank account? Okay, so the next time you are on your bank account website, look and see if it's FDIC insured. They always tell you almost all of them are. Not all of them, but almost all of them are. Remember, that is a federal insurance company that pays you up to a certain amount of money that you have deposited in a bank or credit union, financial institution. If that entity goes out of business with whatever, then the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the federal government, will put your money back in an account for you and give you back that money. So it guarantees the safety of money in a bank, ensuring that each depositor, so the person who puts money in the bank is a depositor, or puts money in an account, and they insure it up to a certain amount. For me, it's not a problem, but if you have a lot of money, you might want to split your money up and put it in different banks, because they typically only insure $250,000, maybe it's up to $300,000 a month now, or for account now, I don't know, but up to a specified amount. If the bank fails, the money can be replaced by the federal government. Depositor. How many of you remember working with the interest formula I equals CRT before? Anybody? Maybe you said yes. Everybody remember using it? I know you remember using this one now. It's an easy one. We are going to work with some pretty complex formulas. Good news is your MDF teachers are so nice here at Liam. Those formulas will all be in your notes. If you have your notes on test, you don't have to memorize formulas. But this one is pretty easy to memorize. We're going to go ahead and go to that screen. I for CRT, where I stands for interest. Remember, interest is money paid or money earned. T is the principal or beginning amount, so it's either the amount you borrow or the amount in your bank account that you're going to earn interest on. So it's the amount you earn interest on or the amount you pay interest on. The beginning amount. So a lot of people just writing interest rate here. It needs to be in decimal form. So you're going to divide that rate that you're usually given as a percent. You're going to drop the percent symbol and divide that number by 100. That's how you're going to find the interest rate in decimal form. And lastly, time, P equals time in years. If they give you the time in years, 2 years, 2.5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you're great. Then if they give it to you at 6 months, you've got to convert that to the portion of the year that 6 months is. So 6 months out of a total of 12 months means it's a half a year, right? 0.5 years. If it's 3 weeks, it's 3 out of 52, right? So 3/52 of a year. And we're going to stick with using those fractions because when they round, there's a lot of rounding error. We're going to stick with fractions, but we get to use our calculator, so easy peasy. Y'all caught up with me? All right. Too big for this. All right. Examples. If you borrow $1,000 for 5 years at a rate of 8%, how much will you have to pay in interest? And it really should say simple interest here. The rest of the problems do a good job of stating that it's simple interest. So we are going to use this formula, I equals PRT. What you need to do is, if we're looking for how much you're paying in interest, then that is our variable. That's what we don't know. So we need the principal, the rate, and the time. So we're going to identify what is the principal for each problem, what is the rate, what is the time. So any of the variables that we know what they are, we identify them, and then we plug it into this formula. So the principal for number 1 is $1,000 because that's what they're borrowing. That's what they're going to pay interest on, $1,000. The rate at 8%. So you drop that percent, take the 8 and divide by 100. So the rate as a decimal is 0.08. And then the time in years, it is already in years, so that's great. No work to do there. Once we've identified the variable that we're going to plug in for, now we just plug them into the formula. So the interest is what we're looking for. Our P is 1,000, our R is 0.08, and our time is 5. So this is required work. I need your variables identified, and then I need to see what you're going to plug into the calculator. Once you plug that into the calculator, you'll see that the interest that you would pay on $1,000 for 5 years, the simple interest at 8% would be $400. Interest and principal are both money. They should both have a dollar sign. And the dollar sign should be the left of the number, not to the right. Anybody else got it down? All right. Read number 2. How much simple interest? So we're using the same formula. We're still looking for I, so we're going to go over here and identify what is our P, what is our R, what is our T. How much simple interest is a $12,000 investment earned at a rate of 7% over 18 years? Chantel, what's our principal? Yes. Leanna, what's our rate?
7%.
Not 7%. What do we have to do? What do we do with the 8% up here?
8%. Oh.
It's got to be in the decimal, right?
0.07.
Yes, so 7 divided by 100 and 0.07. You can put the 0 there if you want. And what is the time, Lawson? 18. So if I'm looking for interest, I've got all the parts, variable values I need. I just plug into the formula. Principal times rate in decimal form times time in years. And so the interest I would earn, I think it's $15,120. $15,120. If you just give me that number, I will not give you credit for it. So number 3, that's your first exit ticket, I think. So you're going to do number 3 on your own for homework. We are going to go on to the next group of problems. going to be your next exit ticket. If you're going to circle that, make a note of that. If you put $1,500 in a savings account for 5 years at a 7.25% simple interest rate, how much interest is earned? This looks very much like the one we just did, but I'll tell you the mistake that kids make. We talked about the rate being in decimal form. Kids see a decimal in that percent and they think it's already in decimal form, right? It's not in decimal form. We always have to divide that number by 100. So we are looking for the interest, but that part is not different. Our principal, that part is not different. And honestly, the rate part is not different. It's 7.25 divided by 100, but a lot of kids think because there's a decimal in it already that it's already in decimal form, and it is not. It's only 0.0725. And the time is 5 years. So we just plug into the formula. Same thing, use our calculator. And show our work. That's all the work you have to show. It's $543.75. It's money. We always are rounding to the second decimal place. This one didn't need to be rounded, but if it's not a terminating decimal, you need to round. If it's 0.7, you need to add a 0, right? You should always have 2 decimal places after the decimal if we're talking about money. Anytime we're identifying interest or principal, we are talking about money. All right, number 6. Brian put $775 in an account, paying 4.24% interest, simple interest. Reminds us what formula we're looking for 9 months. What's the principal here? Sincere? Good. What's the rate? Mason? Not 0.424. Remember, 4.24 divided by 100, right? And that's going to move that decimal place 2 places. It's going to be 0.0424, right? Always divide that interest rate by 100 and drop the percent sign. And then the time. What's the time going to be? Kiana? Kylan? No. Not 9. Did you say 9? Yeah, but it's months, right? That's the trick question. Oh, time in years. So how do you find time in years if it's 9 months? Zariah, what do you do? Well, how many months are there in a year? 12. So we take the 9 and divide by 12. So it's 0.75 parts of a year, right? 75% of a year, which is less than a year, 9 months, so our time is 0.75 parts of a year. So we still do the same thing. We're looking for interest still. And we're going to use the formula. I equals 775 times 0.0424 times the time in years. And when we do that, we should get $24.65 in interest that money has earned. All right, any questions? All right, we're going to keep on moving. If you're not quite done, remember this is going to be a video posted. You can fast forward to the parts you need. I got to keep going. There are people who are done, so we're going to keep moving. All right, we've been looking for interest. Look at the question here. How much money is in the account after 3 years? That's a different question we're answering. Ella deposits $1,200 in an account that pays 4.5% simple interest. She keeps the money in the account for 3 years without any deposits or withdrawals. How much is in the account after 3 years? Well, if she does not put any more money in or take any money out, that you're going to start with $1,200. actually, so not $1,200. Okay, so the principal plus the interest. That's how much money is in the account. Whatever she started with plus however much interest she earned. That's how you find the account balance. So we're still using the simple interest formula. So we already know the principal, it's $1,200. But we don't know what the interest is, but that's what we're finding. In order to find the interest, we need to identify the principal, the rate, and the time. So what is the principal here, Kate? Perfect. What's the rate, Savannah? That's right. And what is the time in years, Susanna? What's the time in years? Okay. So we're going to plug into our formula. 1,200 times 0.045 times 3 to find our interest, and then we're going to add it to our $1,200. So the interest is $162. So the principal plus the interest means the amount in the account is $1,362. In order to answer the question they asked, we did have to find the interest, but that was not the answer to the question. And you guys are finding, completing number 8 on your own. We're actually going to come back to number 9 if we have enough time. If we don't have enough time, we'll complete number 9 at the beginning of class together tomorrow. That way you don't have more problems than anybody else. Everybody is short one problem, so all the same problem, but all right. Kristen borrowed $12,000 from a bank at 6.2% simple interest. Actually, we're going to skip that one too because I want to make sure we get to D. Number 1 is your exit ticket. So we're using the same formula, but we're using it differently here. So we're not going to be solving for I. We're still using the formula. I equals PRT, but now we're going to know the interest, and we're going to solve for one of the other variables. It really works the same way. We identify the parts we know, and we solve for the parts that we don't know. So number 1 you're going to do on your own. We're going to do some problems together so you know how to do it. How much principal must be deposited in a 2-year simple interest account that pays at a rate of 3.25% to earn $300 in interest? So the principal is what we don't know. That is going to be our final answer, right? We do know our interest. They tell us here. We do know our rate, 3.25 divided by 100, 0.0325, and we do know we need to, we're finding out, we're using 2 years as our time. So now instead of plugging in for everything except for I, we're plugging in for everything except for P. So our I is 300, our P we don't know, our rate is 0.0325, and our time is 2. So we are going to simplify this. That just means we're going to multiply these first. So we would have 300 equals 0.065P, and I'm just reversing that order because we're used to seeing that coefficient before our variable, right? So this equation says 300 equals 0.065 times P. Got a one-step equation we're solving, so we're going to divide both sides by 0.065, and now we'll know that our principal, I forget what our principal is, now we'll know that our principal amount was $4,615.38, and we did have to round to here. It's money. It should get a dollar sign. and we should round to that second place value. If I put $1,500 into my account and earn $180 of interest at 4% interest, how long was my money in the bank? I can't help you. Can you talk to me right now, buddy? Go check. All right. If I put $1,500 in my account, so we need to, how long? So what are we solving for? IPRT. How long? What does that refer to? T. T is what we don't know. So we need to identify our interest, our principal, did you find it? Our rate, and the time is what we don't know. So interest, what's going to go in for interest? 180. What's our principal? 1,500. What's the rate? 0.04. So we're going to plug in what we do know and solve for what we don't. We know our I is 180. So I equals our principal is 1,500 times our rate of 0.04. And what we don't know is our time. Sincere, you need something? 1,500 times 0.04, if you would exactly appreciate it. 180 equals 60 T, because 1,500 times 0.04 is 60. Divide both sides by 60. Now we know that T is 3, or 3 years is what we need to be putting for our answer. All right. Last but not least, you guys are going to do number 4. I'm going to do number 5. We're solving for the rate of interest here. What rate? Because that's what we want to know. Let me remind you that it's going to be the rate that we find times 100, and then we add the percent symbol. So Gilbert wants to get money for new glasses. He's going to pawn his guitar. He borrows $240. That's his principal. After 1 month, that's his time. So it's 1/12 of a year, right? Because there's 12 months in a year. The rate is what we don't know. They don't give us the interest. Is there a way I can find out what the interest is? So he borrows $240. He has to pay the pawnbroker back $288. We have to know that the difference there is the interest you pay. So 288 minus 240 equals 48. That is the interest he paid. The difference between what you borrow and what you pay back, that is the interest. The interest is 48. So we're still using the same formula. Interest 48 equals a principal of 240. So you'll notice we're not going to use this 288 in our formula here. So that we just use that number to find our interest. 240 times our rate, which is what we don't know, times our time. And we are going to leave that as a fraction, because if not, there's a big rounding error. So 48 equals 240 times 1/12. Oh, yeah. So it's 20. So it's 20R. Divide both sides by 20. And it looks like the rate is 2.4, but the rate is not 2.4. You have to multiply it by 100. So the rate is 2.4 times 100. That's a 240% interest rate, because we're figuring it out for a year. So if you were to figure out if he paid $48 in interest every month for 12 months, you would have paid 2.4 times the amount he borrowed. Okay? You guys can wait and see what that number 9 would be. But make sure you do the other problems for your extra ticket. We'll get just talk to him at the beginning of class, and don't text the ticket, and then you can scan and submit them during class tomorrow. Correct. One more thing I